So I've stopped that really quickly for fear of copyright infringement. Yeah, and it is Bing Crosby, the war profiteer, the world's leading Freemason, who had Princess Grace killed. I don't know whether or not that bit's true. The Monaco family that she lived in looked very, very sad when I released the news about her killing and all of the monarchy frauds across Europe. I forget what they are called, the dynasty in Monaco, but it's right next door to Beaverbrook's elite pad Cappadocia, the Villa Cappadocia, yeah, in the Côte d'Azur region. Yeah, this is the Formula 1 sector, and Bing Crosby is a hopeless profiteer in wartime. He sells the vicious war bonds. Let me just show you a little bit of that joke. It's absolutely ruthless. And his colleague who worked in Bedford, the birthplace of Lily Allen, and all of the jokers about the rabbits in wartime, and all of the jokes about Bedford Falls, and all of the jokes about profiteering companies that become massive global conglomerates. It's the Bill Clinton story that got me shut down the other day, and this is how they engage themselves in massive profiteering in World War II. And they pretend that they're patriots, and they laugh at everything they do. Okay, so that's high society. Bing Crosby sings True Love, and the True Love joke is the joke that the True Love people with the Wilsons are involved in the companies that remunerate people for sinking other countries and other armies, ships or navies in wartime. It's absolutely cynical, and that leads to the
I'm saving the dime out of every dollar for the family in need to share someday. I'm saving the dime out of every dollar we're gonna be.
So this is the same concept as taking the citizens' gold, yeah, and putting it in Fort Knox so your country can thrive against a menace that your president declared when they were elected, or before they were elected, that they would never allow the US to engage in. That's both Wilson in World War I and FDR in World War II. The precipitants for that we've explained time after time, and this is from the Treasury Department in America. I'm saving a dime out of every dollar, sung by Bing Crosby and Al Newman's orchestra and chorus. Isn't that clever? So the gold goes into Fort Knox. That's the Mellon Bank launch, because the head of the Treasury Department at that time is the man called Mellon. Yeah, he sequesters the gold, and then they have the massive acts of God in his fishing lake near, I forget which state he lived in, and the Mellon Bank are now the sponsors for Oxford and Cambridge in the elite racing sector that is rowing in Britain. Yeah, and all over those videos I've showed you about the French linkages to profiteering, and the songs that they sing about prisons in America, sung by people that are America's greatest musicians. I forget the name of the man who sang St. Quentin, but in the last song he sang in his lifetime as a pop star typifies what his life was about. Yeah, he pretends that he's a revolutionary, he pretends he's trying to flee the slaves in those prisons, but what the prison joke about San Quentin is just about the battlefield that was San Quentin in America, and the jokes about the prisons in Amiens being bombed so that they could get rid of so that they could allow the French loyalists who were in those prisons, because the whole war is run by the profiteers who are traitors. So the loyalists are in the jail so that the profiteering can continue. And the last gesture they make in 1945, before they storm into those countries, and within 100 days all of the territory that the Germans have been holding for the whole of the 4-year conflict are suddenly emancipated. All of the orders come out of the massive summits run by Beaverbrook, run by Churchill, run by Stalin, yeah, and then Stalin becomes the enemy of the people, because he's portrayed as the person who's gifted the whole of Russia for his treasonous acts in World War II as the communist menace. And capitalism again and again is allowed to get away with all of this. The ordinary people never get a life, they're in the shallow graves, and everything that happens is absolutely ruthless, which is why I'm going to make this a short video, because they might shut me down for revealing that. So that's Princess Grace of Monaco killed by these batards like Princess Diana, all because they're intrinsically decent and they're prepared to blow the whistle on what their betters, in inverted commas, do to them in the bedroom, in the Hollywood movie sector. And I'm getting horrible vibes about the prominent singers and the pop stars around the world that are prepared to stand up and support their fans against the tyrants that run the world. And I'm just going to get on now with finishing the story about how the Free French are actually genocidal profiteers, yeah, and that's why they have to bomb the prisons to get rid of the loyalists, or when the loyalists appear in the Buckinghamshire region where Petty France is, and they try and work for their country and to free it from the invaders, they are killed by de Gaulle and by Pompidou under the orders of Jacques Foccart, who's a civil servant that nobody's heard of but me and Bruce Forsyth. Yeah, that's Bruce Forsyth, who stopped working because I revealed the secrets of the killing of the loyalist French in North Africa in the Villa Andrea. Yeah, so everybody that's a celeb, everybody that's in the media who's not prepared to do the decent thing are the wartime profiteers. The people who are prepared to do the decent thing are topped, and they are topped in massive numbers in the war, because that is what the whole war is run to do. Right then, so back to Amiens, where they bombed the prison where the French patriots were interned so that they could not escape, and then tell the story about how for the whole of the war they have been imprisoned as a menace to the profiteering on all sides. Axis and allied countries work together, they're all trained in the same places, and the sequestration of the citizens' money and then the taking of their lives in the unjustified conflicts that follow is absolutely ruthless. And now in peacetime, the treasuries all around the world are emptied by the private bastards that now run the central banks. All of it is run by the Rothschilds. All sides are funded by the Rothschilds in every war and in every revolution and in every religious campaign, which is why they are now totally reliant on Islam. And when you see how the profits are shared in the Truelove companies, the Truelove-Wilson companies that are there to steal and to actually run wagers on the outcome of the great conflict, that's the Betfair joke, and it becomes the Governor General jokes, because the Governor Generals and the GGs launch the betting on the horses, and then the horses win the Oscars in the Hollywood sector. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing how bold and brilliant they are in their declaration that they are actually the war crimes criminals, but also the war crimes jokers. So let's finish off with some pictures of Somme near Amiens. No, let's show you the pictures that I've got. of Amiens War Memorial, and it's really funny. Remember that everything that they laugh at, there's the Christian cross in the middle. Look at the layout, it's massive. It's just like the one in Australia that Quentin Bryce talks about when she laughs at the Anzac War dead and the Mr. Bean Gallipoli jokes. Okay, Mr. Bean was the war correspondent for Gallipoli. When I revealed that Quentin Bryce, the GG, the Governor General in Australia, was having a laugh at the Anzac War dead's expense at the opening ceremony of the London Olympics with the deployment of Mr. Bean and the Chariots of Fire religious joke, Quentin Bryce had to resign within 6 weeks. Okay, it's the Amiens War Memorial. It's built like the gardens at Versailles. Yeah, Amiens is on the north coast, right next door to the Dunkirk region where the scams were perpetrated, and the British Army was sent home so that the invading Germans could take a break, and that Winston Churchill and Beaverbrook, that raised the munitions for the Air Force and the navies, are allowed to make their fortunes, which allows them in the course of time to have the massive villas in Canada, in Britain and in the Côte d'Azur. Okay, and this is a joke about the laminated structure that is the Christian cross. Yeah, everything you hear about the woods and the trees is a joke about the non-existent Jesus, and the Amiens joke is a joke about writing the Bible and the place where King Amahemnut was the boss, where they invented the dye stuffs and the blue dyes that launched the printing industry in Canaan. And all of it they think is really, really funny, and that becomes Amen in the Christian church. Let's have a look at some of the images and their grandiosity. Amiens War Memorial Lamina Photographica. It might take a wee bit of time to run and turn over. There you go. You've got the people on all sides that are prepared to desert their country, and those are the commanders in chief. And when you get things like Operation Valkyrie and everything that happened in Operation Winnie the Pooh, the loyalists actually get shot down because they're a threat to the profiteers. That's why Buckinghamshire has a place called Petty France in it. Okay, ever so melodramatic. And there are the squalid trenches once they've become the tourist icon. You may not be able to see that because of the light on it, but you can. The jokes that they make in the Devil's Advocate movie about who are those bricks for, Kevin? Yeah, all of it is a joke about what is a tragic massacre of the world's innocent and poor people. And look at it, there they are, all of the roses. So this is the joke about the roses in the Somme near the Amiens region, and that is the joke about the Picardy region. And the Picardy songs are sung by Frank Sinatra and the world's leading opera singers, because all of them understand entirely Bing Crosby's profiteering joke. Yeah, all of the G8 and G20 countries understand that at the top of the leadership tree, and that is why the prime ministers who stand in the way of the treason, like Norman Kirk in New Zealand, are actually executed by the people that run the wars. And John Key in New Zealand now is quaking in his boots, because like every other prime minister, he is a hedge fund manager or a massive financial services millionaire. And when I report things to him about Otago University and their global tours, he's been obligated to confirm receipt of my correspondence, because he's more cowardly than the people in Europe. Yet New Zealand were dragged into this as an unjustified conflict again and again and again, And when the truth comes out about their citizens being killed by their leaders, like Quentin Bryce and all of the Fergusons who were the Governor Generals when I was in New Zealand, yeah, that's why the Fergusons are in the news all of the time. That's why Manchester United's in the news all of the time, and that goes back to much older war crimes, yeah, and the deployment of the Busby Babes for just ordinary domestic murders in America. Okay, the investment in the profiteering beyond the grave for the victims is massive. I'd better go back to my original theme, and everywhere you go you've got penile monuments, yeah, with the Christian icons on the top for a laugh, and some of them look like chimneys, which is both the Sanity Clause, the Santa Claus and the Ovens jokes all rolled into one. Oh, and the man who's the profiteer with the war bonds and the selling of war bonds in Bedford in the UK, which is the air balloon joke that Lily Allen shares with the world because she went to school in Bedford. Yeah, they had a air balloon factory in Bedford to produce those things that hang over the bombing zones to defend them against the bombing. And that is the joke about Jesus going to heaven in the air balloon. Look at Lily Allen's song about I forget what it's called, Lily Allen, and we'll find it later on if we've got time. Okay, so the person who profiteers in Bedford during wartime and is actually seconded to Bedford and does global tours with his band, and it's a big band joke. His name is Miller, that is Muller, and that is part of the Piso fraud, because they are the people in the mills that grind the bones to flour. Do you get it? And then all of the fascist blackbirds come flying out of the pie. And that joke is shared by the Duke of Northumberland even today, because inside his elite shooting lodge where he shoots the pheasants rather, yeah, he has images of the blackbirds flying from the pie. Yeah, and the pie is the Piso joke all over again, and the pie in Scotland is the female vagina, and the pie is the story about the feet of the willow and the female vagina, and all of it is really, really sick. Yeah, and all of it leads to that all of the time, and they think it's really, really funny that always they get away with it. Anyway, I'm going to go back now to the bits that I did not get finished. Yeah, we can finish off with another tour of this super elite and really expensive war graves with the wood in the background. Do you now get the scene about them not reaching the wood in the Great Escape movie, which led to the premature death of Steve McQueen, but not the black man who made the jokes about Hitler's rabbits when he won the Oscar about slavery? Yeah, that's a black man making a joke about freeing the slaves around the same time when they invented the tank and the internal combustion engine. Yeah, and they got rid of the colliers that we talked about in the earlier videos. Okay, that's the Canadian Cemetery. See the lumberjacks who are doing okay in the Monty Python's team, singing about the larches, the oaks, the willows. Everything behind them is a joke, and everything ahead of them they think is a continuing profiteering joke about the central bank in the Basel Faulty joke, and everything they do is a genocidal laugh. Yeah, John Cleese, who's in the tax havens, makes that Basel Faulty joke, and he makes speeches at Monte Cassino because he knows that that is where the returning troops from France and Italy, as loyalists to their country, were killed by Lucky Luciano and the terrorists from America. Yeah, that's Nixon's friends. Nixon is a war criminal. He has committed genocide in Vietnam, and across the South Pacific. Yeah, he's run narcotics, he's condoned all of the killings that Henry Kissinger has engaged in for all of his life before he received the Peace Prize. Okay, I'm getting off the topic of the French treason. There is, we got to this part, right, almost right to the bottom of the revelations of what goes on in Amiens, and we got, I think, to a disclosure that the magnificent cathedrals are the most magnificent in the world. They've been there since the 12th century, and the jail where the loyalists were was deliberately bombed to free the loyalists from the jail. Do you get it? So the loyalists are a threat to the profiteering and the treason, so they get it in the neck with the English Air Force bombing the shit out of their place. The cathedral is totally untouched. Okay, all of the icons, all of the frauds, all of the catwalk stories, and all of the vaginal nature of the orifices and all of the architectural jokes are shared there. The catwalk in the artistic, perfume driven fashion sector in all of the parish art sectors are driven by the concept that the aisle in these churches is built on the heads of the beheaded saints. The whole of the church is a fraud for all of its history. Okay, so we got a little bit further up than that, and I think this is where we left off, where we were talking about Achilles and the commune concept, that the working man comes together in both Israel and France in communes to help share things with the rest of the world. Yeah, the Israelis that I knew that lived in the communes, they got blinded by God for their sins in the false medicine sector. Okay, I will not tell you their names for fear of revenge attacks, but she will not be carrying the gun because she is totally blinded now. Okay, other neighbourhoods in the Amiens region, there are also famous working class areas in Amiens, such as the pigeonnier, that's the dove, and the peaceful people, that's a joke. Okay, the dove is the icon, and they shoot them down. Yeah, and my wife sees the doves as filthy creatures, and she would shoot them down if she had a gun licence. Hopefully the Lothian Borders Police will never pluck up the courage to issue her with a gun licence, like the Duke of Northumberland has taken from the ordinary working men that work for him, because they're alleged to be binge drinkers. Yeah, okay, I've worked with a lot of them. Yeah, I've worked with them for £32 a day as a professor of neuroscience and as the world's most insightful serious fraud investigator. And Percy, who is the Duke of Northumberland, was in the Roman court, and his name in those days was Perseus. Isn't that funny? And he beheaded the Gorgon. Yeah, and all of it is into the ancient stories and the myths. So the Amiens Cathedral is a World Heritage Site. It's the tallest of the largest classic Gothic churches of the 13th century and is the largest in France of its kind. And it must be a reasonable distance from the jail where the loyalists were, because it's totally untouched by the carpet bombing to take them out. Okay, do you get it? Under the churches and under the city of Amiens, they have a Mithraeum. It's called in this story a labyrinth for innocence reasons. Okay, and that's the labyrinth that the Minotaur and the Baal concept roams around in other parts around the Mediterranean as they launch Christianity as an official secret in the venues that they party in and have the orgies in like Max Aitken does in England when he's not partying on the Formula 1 circuits near the Côte d'Azur. Okay, and there is the circus joke, so the Pizzo menagerie of animals can prance around in it. The horses dance around, the elephants dance around. That's the Baba joke in Gallipoli, because the elephant is the elephant that's told in the fairy stories about Hannibal crossing the Alps and taking on the might of Rome and its empire, yeah, as a kind of flankers joke, yeah, that they take the elephants over the top. The elephant is just an extension of the rats and the puka jokes and the big ears jokes about the goblins and the goblets on the church roofs, shared by all of the French Freemasons and all of the slaves who are prepared to kill their own children to pay for their pre-Masonic presence in the lodge, and a sly laugh at being a traitor to your country so you can keep your friends. In England that costs you £250 a year. Amiens Municipal Circus in 1912. Look at the Coldplay jokes about St. Peter, who will not let Coldplay through the pearly gates because St. Peter never existed. That's why he knows that when St. Peter calls his name, that he will not be allowed into heaven. It's all written about in the Pizzo family fraud. The municipal circus is the Pizzo menagerie, the horses, the elephants, the lions of Judah, and all of the stories that we've heard over and over again. So they've got 7 circuses around the globe that still are cemented to the loyalist ground for the treasonous people. Okay. Amiens Municipal Circus in 1912, yeah, when the Hotel Cecil was the venue for the genocidal leaders who are involved in the eugenics planning campaign, hosted by the Balfours, hosted by the people that are in the Cecil dynasty, that are in charge of the whole of the Republic of South Africa and all of the adjacent countries, and that becomes the Boer War over time. Amiens is also known for the Hortelinoges gardens on small islands in the marshland between the river Somme and the river Avra. The Avra is the Avril, the Jewish angel joke. That's Avriel, yeah? And the Raphael Jewish angel is the launch of the squadrons in the Battle of Britain, because it's the RAF joke. Do you get it? And when they bring the ships down or they sink them with their massive torpedoes, they get remunerated by the true love joke. Yeah, that's in the earlier video, which is why I played you the true love music. And the Sedgwick people are people who went with the Pilgrim Fathers to America, launched the Boston Tea Party, then started to work for the Dutch in the sectarian divide, and all of it is absolutely ruthless. Okay, you've got the Magdalene Cemetery, the Mary Magdalene joke again and again and again, and the River Avra region and the Somme, the massive battlefield, is surrounded by a grid network of man-made canals, locally known as the Rio. That's the Andrew Rio from Austria joke, who is the elite musician that has a laugh about the birthplace of Hitler. And Hitler's birthplace in Innsbruck becomes the joke at the no room of the inn for Jesus joke. Okay, the floating gardens, so the canals, that's like the Ostia story. Yet what they've done is, because of the capitalist icon, is they've interrupted God's project of creating a beautiful world with lovely flowing rivers, and they have canalized it. Yeah, that happens right at the mouth of the river that flows through Bedford and flows into the sea at Folkestone, where Michael Grade's massive empire is, They are the people that went east, young man, with the jokes about the Dickens characters that were Steerforth, and all of it is massive, and they think it's really, really funny to cull the people all over the place. The little Venice of the North. See the jokes about Venice and the quest for the Holy Grail, involving Sean Connery, the heart attack victim, who gets his solace and his advice on how to recover from his heart attack from David Murray, who runs a French vineyard in Burgundy, where this fucking place is. Yeah, and Murray's headquarters are in Dunedin for tax evasion reasons. Right then, history. The city has a number of concert spaces, mostly small venues, which include La Zenith Amiens and La Lune des Pirates. That's the moon of the pirates. Do you know who the pirates are now? Yeah, they're the governments. None of them ever die in any of the great conflicts, because they are entirely planning all of this from their safe, no bombing zones in Oxford, Cambridge, Göttingen and Heidelberg, and many of those are already in America. Some of them are in South Africa, some of them are interned on the Isle of Man and the tax havens, just being readied to be released as tax criminals and laundering master plans all over the free world, in inverted commas. Okay, exhibition halls include the Maison de la Culture. It's ever so posh. During December, the town hosts the largest Christmas, in inverted commas, market. Yeah, that's the Santa Claus joke. The 3 ships going sailing by from adjacent Spain, from Magellan's fleet, that launched Christianity into the South Pacific as the El Nino baby Jesus false icon joke. Okay, the macarons d'Amiens. Yeah, this is their biscuits and their almond pastes and all of the artistic duck patty thing. Yeah, the duck is a joke about dukes and duchesses and all of the monarchies that rule the world. Yeah, and some of them are ever so penitent now, because they get the cancers and they work with people like the Duke of Northumberland's worked with me. They now know about my power, which is why I've met their relatives in the supermarkets, and they're ever so intrigued that there could be an innocent and courageous man prepared to sacrifice his life with a 6-figure salary to free the world. None of the bastards are interested in concepts like that. They're interested only in the orgy, the cheap shot crimes against their people and their employees, and everything that they do to every country in these massive global conflicts. And the people that work in the newspaper sector and in the media, like the Quislings Moffat and Naughty, yeah, I'm particularly sore at them, because they work in the elite book sector as well. And all of the jokes that we've shared about the elite writers and the launch of the people as cover-ups for the Navy sinking ships be remunerated by the Truelove family with the Wilson family in tow. Yeah, I've got the company check details for the company in England that still is registered under that name. They operate out of Bradford. Yeah, the York Freemasons, the Leeds Freemasons, the Bristol Freemasons, the Liverpool Freemasons, all of them are the epicenters for the media frauds, the corrupted royal hospitals, and all of the stuff that happened in the slaving era, which is why it's particularly sad that a black man called Steve McQueen, who's the cover for the Steve McQueen the war criminal joker, yeah, he gets an Oscar for making a joke about the enslavement of his own people by these militias that kill them in their millions. That's the over there joke. Right then, the University of Picardy, which is a range of courses, Faculty of Medicine and Pharmacy, Faculty of Law, Politics and Economics. That is the vicious triumvirate that now owns the world. Yeah? but the money lenders run them like puppets. Okay, and the money lenders are now the people that graduated from there. Isn't that close to Islam? That's the institute in the new university that was created as a super right-wing university after the student revolution in the 1960s had been beaten on the head by the fascist policemen. Okay, they become interested in economic manipulation. That's the Islam Institute of Management and Administration, but without the L for London. Okay, and what you've got here is a joke about the religious fraud once again. So these are the roads out of Amiens. This one's to Rouen. The road to Rouen is Le Havre Road, and that is the new chattel in Bray. Do you get it? E-aw, e-aw, e-aw. That is Jesus, the donkey in the David Murray Scottish Borders Council golf course joke, and the Jesus in the Bible. Yeah? And the palms on Palm Sunday are a joke in the Four Fruits jokes about the width and the diameter of the female vagina. Isn't that funny? Okay, and I think that's about it, which is why it's brief and short and really, really nasty. Yeah, and there's the bikes. In London, that joke is the Barclays bike joke, shared by the blonde bombshell that is Boris Johnson, and shared by the Barclays boss before he got his 20 million pay bonus, and he was revealed as a minor criminal, as one of his employees in the London whale scandal got away with the persecution. But it's only in the false news media, and all of them are massive millionaires at the public's expense. Okay, I think that's about the end of the story. But just to remind you, oh no, this is the sad bit. So this is the outcomes of that. Olivier Blanchard becomes the chief economist at the IMF. Please notice that the bosses at the IMF for 15 to 20 years or so have been Mr. Strauss-Kahn, trained by the man from the Chicago region that was, I forget the name of the massive bankster that operated out of Chicago University, but he was the boss at the IMF before Strauss-Kahn, the rapist, became the boss at the IMF, and the woman who was a minor criminal at the bank Paribas, who now sells the refugee homes to all of the people that are cast into the diasporas. Even the gold rushes around the world in world history are diasporas, to get the numbers down, to dispossess them of their homes back in the homeland, and they're looking for the capitalist myth that is the golden plenty. Yeah, all of it is taken from all of those pagan nations by Magellan's fleets in that first visit, and it's now in the massive cathedrals in all of the countries that are the Christianity fraudsters. Okay, the IMF thing is particularly vicious. I've visited the street in Washington where the IMF headquarters are, where Grand Central Station is, and where all of the massive embassies and financial institutions are. It's a magnificent place, absolutely magnificent, and all of the assets of all of the innocent countries across our globe are now in magnificent, fraudulent and genocidal cities like that. The Odette Hallows. So this is the famous people that live in Amiens. Yeah, and I've told you about the climax to World War I, World War II, and the treaties that take you back to the 15th century and to the Napoleonic conflicts. It's a joke. It's the so be it in the Christian Bible joke, as it was written. Okay, so Odette is one of the heroines that's dreamt up in the Second World War. She could well have been a heroine. There are some innocent people on this globe, but because the news comes from the same genocidal teams, then you get really nervous about those stories. And the story about the little red girl in the Schindler's List movie and the Little Red Doll in the bringing down of the Twin Towers. It's a joke about the chosen ones to be part of the world leadership genocide team. Okay, so Odette Hallows, GCMBE, née Braley, Chevalier de la Légion. Yep, so the legionnaires are the people that go into the Holy Lands. 1912 to 1995, this is the war hero in the Second World War. Yeah, she gets movies made in Hollywood like the people who become the saints at the, I forget the place. I used to be captivated entirely by the movies about the French saints, and all of that is just made up. I forget the name of the movie about the French woman who saw the vision of the Virgin Mary, but I was a fanatical fan of that movie for all of my life as an altar boy. And when you put the seed into people's heads to control the masses, it's a really, really effective tool. So who did they pick as one of their famous people in the 11th century? But Peter the Hermit. Peter is the name of the first fraudulent Roman Pope. That is the cock crowing 3 times joke, which is shared by Jesus College, Cambridge, on their icon. That's where the Time Team historians work from. Peter the Hermit is a famous citizen of Amiens. Yeah, Amiens. Peter the Hermit, 11th century, 12th century instigator of the First Crusade. Do you get it? Yeah, the brutalization of the Holy Lands since we sent our king from Britain down there, and Robin Hood was fighting for justice for the ordinary common people back home. Yeah, that's the Robin Hood played by the man Errol Flynn from Northampton, which is the place that is the sanctuary for the refugees in the elite sector who flee from Napoleon in the Revolutionary War. Yeah, do you get it? Errol Flynn is from Northampton. Melrose is another elite internment camp in Scotland. That's why it's got black and yellow colours. Okay, and then you've got famous football players, imperial usurpers